Tweets ignite society. Statuses begin battles. Everyone has an opinion. No one wants to surrender. We bring the cold hard facts. We are calling for a ceasefire.
It's time for a ceasefire moment. Take time to gather information before continuing that battle. Using the CDC Covid tracking site, we are going to look at data from 2020 versus 2021, including testing, case, and death numbers. Then we'll show you around the site a bit and take a quick look at the current case and death rates at some of the most and least vaccinated and most and least mandated states. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Here we are on the CDC COVID data tracker website, and we're going to take a look at then and now snapshots. So we're going to start out with testing. Everybody was about tests in the very beginning. Test. We started out with 15 days to slow the spread and the state shutting down back in March 16th. So if we pull that up, and it's getting a hold of these dates is a little hard sometimes. I should show you though, if you happen to go to this website, you can make it much easier on yourself by clicking down here and looking at the numbers, which is what I did. So I do have the numbers already, but just to give you an idea, we're looking about March 16th, which is right around in here somewhere. We were at about 27,000 tests being done daily. Now let's flash forward to now. Now, around March 16th, which is around in here somewhere, we are doing about 150,000, and I'm rounding numbers up and down accordingly. We are 123,000 more tests per day now. If you were into being tested, we've definitely increased that. 15 days after the 15 days to slow the spread, that was about March 31st, which is here. We were at about 142,000 tests being done a day. And now, around March 31st, we're looking at, I'm not going to try and get right on March 31st, I looked the number up already. We're at about 1.5 million being done a day. Definitely up that by 1.3. And we could go through, we could look at all of these. Basically, it looks like that as far as the testing goes on all of the events that we're going to look at later with the deaths and cases, that we are doing much more testing than we were back then, which kind of makes more sense because back then we didn't even have the test available to some people. If you want to look at the curve, you can see where there's a curve here on testing. It goes up and then it goes down and it goes up. And you can see this starts around September, this starts around August. So it seems as though there is a certain time period when people are afraid they have COVID and are going out and get tested. You'll also notice this is the vaccination timeline, that the more people who are vaccinated, it's really not affecting these numbers very much as far as who's getting tested. You have to remember, in the testing, that's people going on vacation, they're getting tests to go to concerts and events and ball games and that. So the testing isn't really telling us that much, but since it was a big issue in the beginning, I thought I'd take a quick look at that. Now, let's look at cases. So when we look at the cases here, here's your curve of the number of vaccines. You would expect that the more this goes up, the more this would go down. Again, you'll see there's a curve that goes up and then it starts back up again. It does look like we are definitely about 50,000 less cases per day, give or take, in this ballpark frame. So let's take a look at some of these major events. Again, let's go back to the March 16th was when we started the 15 days. Cases were about 2,300 per day. Let's flash forward to now. And right now we're in this range in here and we're looking at about 71,000 cases per day. If we look back to the 31st, which is 15 days later, we were up to 23,000 cases. So went from 2,300 cases. We spent 15 days to slow the spread, and we went to 23,000 cases. In comparison to now, in that 15-day time span, and it's good to compare them just because it's similar weather, people are doing similar activities, and things like that. We should be significantly lower, seeing as how back then we didn't know anything, and now we've had over a year to figure out different avenues of protection, different avenues of treatments. So we should be lowering those numbers. Maybe not as low as they were in the beginning, but the numbers should be, significantly lower. So if we look at now, on March 16th, we were at about 52,000, and 15 days later, we were at 71,000. So we increased in that time frame about the same as the increase back then. We went up about 20,000 back then per day, and we went up 20,000 now per day. Let's look back here to April. April 3rd, we started the masking. So right in here, you can see where the numbers are about there. We started the masking, and we had 31,000 cases per day at that point. And if we flash forward over here to the April 3rd time frame, we are looking at about 65,000. So at the same time frame, 2020 compared to 2021, we have increased 33,000 more cases per day. I don't know if that's shocking to you, but it kind of was to me, because we've had a year to figure things out at that point. So 33,000 increase on cases per day. The vaccine had been in effect for almost 100 days at that point. We have the vaccine, we're a year later, and we've increased by 33,000 cases per day. Let's go back. April 16th, we were starting to open things. We had about 31,000 cases per day. If we flash forward to the April, we're looking at 70,000 new cases per day. Again, we were starting to open up back then. We've increased, this year, by 39,000 new cases per day. So let's look at when remdesivir came on. That was in May 1st. We were at 30,000 new cases per day. So now remdesivir has been the treatment of choice about 30 days after the 15 days, slow the spread. Initially, we had 23,000 new cases per day. Now we're 30 days later, and we're at 30,000 cases per day. So that was when remdesivir came out. Let's look a year later. Let's see if we've increased or decreased, because now people are being treated with that regularly. We had 47,000 new cases. So we've had an increase a year later of 17,000 cases per day on the day that remdesivir came out, and on the 30-day to slow the spread. Now let's look at 30 days after we reopened back in May, which would have been May 16th, and we had about 25,000 new cases per day. So we just came off of being closed down. Things are starting to reopen. This is 45 days after a masking mandate was put in, and we're up to 25,000 cases a day. It did go down slightly, about 6,000 people per day. If we were to look at May 1st of this year, we were looking at 47,000 new cases per day. So we went up 17,000 per day. These are cases that are diagnosed per day. Now again, you do have to think maybe people are getting ready to go somewhere, go on vacation, something like that, ball games and that, but we're up 17,000 cases per day. So that means there's more people being tested, but it also means there's more people testing positive. So we had on May 26th, we had the George Floyd protests, and everybody was worried that that was going to create a major uptick, but did it? So if we look at that George Floyd protest, that happened around May 26th. So that happened in here. And 30 days later, would be around the 25th of June. So you can see there was a slight uptick in cases. But I'm curious, let's see, did the same uptick happen in 2021? So again, if we go over here and we find our May 25th, 26th was when those started. And then 30 days later was June. So you can see it may have had an effect because this went down and that went up. So the protest probably did have an effect. Otherwise, this might have dipped down before it went up again. Oh, that was 55 days after remdesivir had been introduced as well. Right around in here, July, we had schools reopening, and people were worried that the schools reopening were going to create a big uptick in cases. But you can see that that was not the case, because in fact, it was a downswing instead of an upswing after schools reopened. Let's take a look at July of July 28th. And here, interesting enough, this year we did have a major uptick. So you can see it went up. So last year, in that same time frame from July 28th on, it went down, and here it went up. January 20th was when President Biden took office. That was right around in here. So you can see we were at some of our all-time highs as far as cases, but you can also see this is January 20th, and if you look, we're sitting here in September, we were just as high as we were when he took office. He had a 100-day plan in place, started getting masking and things like that done. The first vaccination came out about 50 days into office. They said the vaccinated did not have to wear masks. You can see it going up, but you can see where the vaccines first came out. We went up. They said, oh, the vaccinated don't have to wear masks. Took them off, went up a little bit. On March 23rd, that would have been 100 days after the first vaccine was right in here. So you can see the vaccine numbers have gone up, but our numbers are going up. This incidentally is at the same time we put almost 100,000 vaccines and our numbers are going up. Now, 100 days into Biden's administration was right here on the 3rd, April 30th or so, right in there. You can see that we had went down a little bit. And here is where they said the vaccinated didn't have to wear masks. They still don't have to wear masks. They still don't have to wear masks. And then they come out on July 27th and they said vaccinated have to wear masks now. So all this time, all the people who weren't vaccinated, and we all know full well people who were not vaccinated were not wearing masks anytime. So during this time frame, most of the people were not wearing masks. And it went down. They said, oh, vaccinated gotta wear masks now. Although I have to be honest, around where we're at, people never put the mask back on. September 9th, Biden started instituting the vaccine mandates. At this point, we are at about 186,000 cases per day. Back then, let's go back and find September over here. So the vaccine has been mandated. Our numbers are close to what they were in this time frame. 60 days after the vaccine mandates, we're looking at November 23rd. This time frame in here at 100,000 new cases per day. See this? Vaccinated going up. It's rolling. You can see the rolling numbers. But you know, I've said all along, in reality, just because you get sick doesn't mean you die. But in general, it's the deaths that we're trying to stop. So if we go, let's take a look at the deaths. Now the first thing is, you can see, again, it's this rolling. It'll be interesting to see once we get out here, the rolling. You can see the number of vaccinations, and where we are almost 9 months later, and the numbers are going up. Look at the number of deaths we had back here in the very beginning. You would think that after all this time between here and here, we should have figured out how to prevent some of those. Again, we're a year in. If we compare November 23rd, a year ago, we had 1,400 deaths per day. To today, we have 1,400 deaths per day. In fact, we are actually up 14 deaths per day from November 23rd of 2020 to November 23rd of 2021. We're up 14 deaths per day. Now, let's take a look at this. This here is vaccination progress. I want to take a quick look. I just want to show you. So here's, these states have more than 70% of their population vaccinated. There's New York is up there too, pretty high. Now let's go down here, and these are the states that have less than 50% of their people vaccinated. So in theory, if we look at their states, they should have higher numbers of cases, and you would assume deaths, than these states. So let's go find out. Again, I'm using the COVID data tracker. I've selected 3 of the top and 3 of the bottom. Now here's where it makes a difference how you look at numbers. I'd say the vaccination started right around here. Some states were a little slower, some were faster. But we know that Rhode Island, which is the purple, this is Rhode Island. And we know that Connecticut, which is the green, and we know that Maine, which is the blue, have the most vaccinations. Do you notice something? These are the ones with the least. These are the ones with the most. Here's the United States. This is doing the raw totals. What this does not take into account is, this is just the number of people. So if you have 10 people in one room, 50 people in another, this is just saying there was 2 in this room and 2 in that room. It's not really telling us, like, if you're looking at the state. Because 2 out of 10 is worse than 2 out of 50. If you want to even those numbers out, you click this number, rates per 100,000. Now you should see a really good comparison. So if you look at this, you can see where Rhode Island is just like in the middle of the pack. Connecticut is at the bottom. The United States is right here in the middle. And Maine is kind of up here. Now remember, up here, more cases. So the people up here have more cases. Who's right at the top? Rhode Island. Imagine that. Over 70% of their people are vaccinated. Here we go. Maine. Over 70% of their people are vaccinated. Connecticut. Over 70% of their people are vaccinated. Let's see. Where's West Virginia? Oh, look at that. Here's West Virginia. Less than 50%. Idaho. Look at Idaho going down. They're going down. Less than 50%. And Alabama. Look where Alabama's at. Way down here. Less than 50%. I want you to notice something else. You would expect this line, you see how they're all kind of rolling together? You would expect that to be different based on the vaccination rate. You would expect to see like the ones that are vaccinated to not roll the same. They're all rolling exactly the same. Now let's take a look at something else. I'll show you cumulative. This is another thing. Here's the Maine is down here, Connecticut, Rhode Island, but there's not a significant difference in the number of cases being reported. But again, like we talked about, really we want to try and get rid of the death rate. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Idaho, Alabama, still hanging out down there. They're doing something. They did have a big curve there for a moment, but in general, they've got it down. Again, you see there's still curves that are about the same. Here's the cumulative. Again, you'll see there's not a significant difference. Now, Maine is down here, but in general, we're all grouped together, all up here. So then I thought, well, let's look at, we know some of the ones that have the, let's change this to the rate, the stricter guidelines. Let's look at cases. Again, you'll notice they're all staying together kind of as a group. Nothing significant between the ones who are doing a lot of mandates, closing down things, wearing masks. In California, New York, that you can't go into restaurants unless you're vaccinated, things like that. You would expect them to be separating themselves from the rest of the group. So here's California, the purple one, the green one, Illinois, Michigan, New York is right here. Again, you notice these are on top. New York, Florida. Look at that number for Florida. Now, interestingly enough, Florida has been open for a long time. They don't have any mandates, and yet they're still on the same roll. This is cases. We're looking at cases. And here's Connecticut. And you also notice, like you can see in general, the United States is on the same roll. If you look at deaths, again, we notice the same rolling. I don't know what's going on out there. Connecticut is kind of odd lines, but look at Florida, Connecticut. Now see, the other thing is I thought of weather, but you would pretty much think California's on about the same weather as Florida. So if it had something to do with sunshine, getting out, people outside. But then you look, here's California. It's hard to stay on California. And California is warm. New York, it's freezing in New York. People aren't running around outside. But there's not much difference between California and New York. Illinois, freezing up there. Green, it's right in here. So even whether people are inside or outside, and I can't see, here's the United States rolling. This is the people who have the most vaccinated. Let's see, who do we have? Rhode Island is lower than the United States. These ones are slightly higher. Notice these numbers over here, though. It's not much separating them. That's 1. You see that? 1. That's how much is separating. Less than half a person separating all these people. The ones with the highest vaccine rate, the ones with the lowest vaccine rate. Look, ones with the most amount of mandates, the ones with the least amount of mandates. I hope you've learned something so that you can go here and check these out yourself. You just go right here you just type in COVID CDC. It takes you right here. You go to this, you usually end up right here at the data tracker. You can go here, cases and deaths. And if you want to see numbers, you just click right here. It shows you all the numbers. You can see where most deaths occur. Let's look at counts just to see. This is in the last 7 days. This is an interesting number. In the last 7 days, California has had the most number of deaths. These are actual people. These are not per 100,000. These are actual number of people. Florida has lost 18. California has lost 500 in the last 7 days. California, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. So when you compare all the numbers, generally, it seems as though the trends, it's a rolling trend. No matter what you look at, it's a rolling trend. Everybody's rolling on the same trend. All right. I hope that was helpful.